Hey guys, Chris the Bad Guy here, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Maxace Serpent Striker. I've waited a while to make this video because it is just such an awesome knife, especially for the money. Like, I was thinking for this video, just to compare it, you would think I'd compare it to things like the Alpha Beast, or the 51, which is a similar construction, or maybe the BB Barfly, which as a trainer is quite similar, or maybe a Squid, which is really close to it in price these days. But I'm going to start off by comparing it to two knives, one trainer, one being a trainer from when I started flipping. This was back in 20, I gotta remember. It's back when I started flipping between 6 and 8 years ago. I can't remember just how long ago it was. But, this was the first kind of trainer you would get. This is $20, and it's a Benchmade, not even a real Benchmade clone, it's just some random trainer they decided to slap the Benchmade name on to try to get some money for it. And it's probably zinc alloy handles. I've had these melt really easily under flame because I've tried to, just because. And I mean, it has the principal movements of a balisong, but besides that, it's just a piece of junk. I'm sure the blade is some kind of template steel or some kind of thing. I'm sure it's pressed. And then this is what I started on for my first real balisong. This is a Chimera 11, and for $130 from Blade, I think I got it from Blade Play. It might have been from Blade HQ. I don't remember, but at the price, this was the best you could get at the time. And besides this, you would have to go up to a 51. And that was the best thing you could get otherwise. And the 51, your regular 51, this is the 1501 blue version. But you would have to spend like $230 or $250, whatever it was back then. The 51's a lot more expensive these days than it used to be. And neither of these are honestly phenomenal flippers. I mean, they're great knives. They have amazing build quality and craftsmanship. Each of them do. The Chimera latch wears off after a while. You can't really use it as much. But it's a well-built knife. But it's not perfect. I mean, it's extremely thin. I mean, let's compare it to an Alpha Beast. The Alpha Beast is a whole lot thicker, and compared to the Serpent Striker, it's not even comparable. It's like you could almost fit it inside the sandwich portion of the knife itself. And this is just the best you could get for the price back then. I mean, it's nothing to complain about, honestly. It's not very long. It's an extremely short balisong. It's shorter than the 51. And the 51 is a relatively short balisong to begin with. The trainer, I can't remember how long that one is. Let me compare it. A little shorter than the Chimera. But these days you have stuff like the Squids, and the Squids are huge, and that makes it easier to flip. You have your BB Barflies, which aren't as long, but they're still longer, if about the same length and handle-wise as a 51, and because it's such a bigger handle and just width and thickness, and even in this dimension and not just the vertical dimension when I have them laid out like this. I mean, that's what made this trainer even remotely usable, because the handles were so big and fat that you just had a lot to grab onto, especially for someone with moderate-sized hands like me. Not that I can't flip something like this, but with bad tolerances, it becomes a pain. So, that's what makes knives like this these days just an absolute, lack of words amazement. Like, this thing has steel liners, I presume. It's long. Let's compare it to the Alpha Beast now. It's long. It doesn't even want to keep the handle together. It moves so much. It just wants to move. BB barfly right here. Put squid right here. I mean, it's got dimensions of a modern day high-end ballet song. The 51, it's larger than the 51 for sure. And that's in a good way. And the Chimera, it just completely blows it out of the water. I'm sure I don't need to show you. So, back to the Serpent Striker. This thing is just an amazing thing to flip. Like, just listen to it for a second. Like, it is just fantastic. Like, I could sit here and flip this all day. It doesn't need Loctite. It doesn't have a bushing system. But it has bearings. And the bearings are very nice. They're better than the Tachyons, in my opinion. Just because they're on steel on both surfaces instead of aluminum and then steel. I think the Tachyon might have had a steel plate, but it didn't feel like it. Just for like a steel washer between the handle that was aluminum and the bearings. But this knife just flips so incredibly well. Let's talk about why it flips so well. So, the balance of the knife is honestly pretty nice. I mean, I know people always say, don't bounce it on your fingers, it's dumb. Well, it does show a good sense of balance, honestly. Not how it flips, but where the weight is mostly. And the spacers in the back, I believe, are G10, so they're not incredibly heavy. So you would think this knife is mostly just blade heavy, or handle heavy, I mean. And it is. The weight is mostly even throughout the entire length of the handles, and the blade is almost like an afterthought of weight, which, believe it or not, is an extremely well-flipping ballet song. It's almost like a Fly Tie 51, which is just very neutral. And the Fly Tie 51 is a very good flipper, it's just not very long. And it's not very wide. This knife flips like a slightly smaller replicant, if I'm being honest, with a little less weight in the back. It's very neutral. It flips extremely well. And just because it wants to move so much, like there's nothing stopping this knife when it's tuned right. Also, those Zen pins are so nice, especially when you have it lubed up, which I don't right now. But when you have this thing lubed up, it sounds almost like a replicant. It feels better to me than a replicant because it just wants to move easier. I'm a bushing kind of guy most of the time, so when you have a knife that has bearings and it just is done right, it's just great. This knife, it has my favorite blade shape besides a crisp blade, and that would be a Tanto focus. And I like the handles being different colors because it's a good indicator of where's the bite handle if you want to look at it while you're flipping. I didn't get a chance to test out the latch or the pocket clip because they weren't sent over. But it has Zen pins, which are very nice. The blade is pretty sharp. It's pretty sharp, to be fair. I can't remember what the blade steel was. I want to say it was marked somewhere. Oh yeah, it's 9CR18 MOV, if you want to look at that. And, I mean, comparably, I don't like to flip knives and how well they flip. Because if you're a good flipper, you can flip most knives and do almost every trick on them. It's going to be a little easier on some compared to the others. And you're going to enjoy it more on some than the others. And that's what I'm more focused about. How much you enjoy flipping a knife is really what makes a knife more worth it to me than another or not. You can have a knife with optimal balance that is theoretically the perfect balance knife for said individual like me who likes the way a certain knife flips. I like heavier ballet songs with a rear bias that carry well and do rollovers well and are okay for technical stuff because they just want to flow and do what you want. But that doesn't mean that just because you have a knife with that balance, it's going to be enjoyable. A knife needs to have things that you just enjoy. It has to feel good to your hand. It has to have every other thing that you like about it for it to be enjoyable. It has to feel good in your hand. It has to have a good response to when it makes clicks. Sometimes, like the Tachyon 2 was almost silent if it was set up properly. It's got to make the right sounds. It's got to just feel. The key word here, the key theme here is feel. It's got to feel good in your hands. It's got to release some dopamine when you flip this thing. And if a knife doesn't have great balance, but it has everything else you enjoy about it, then it's an instantly better battle song in my opinion, because as long as it isn't balanced horribly, it's going to be better. And it depends on what you're doing, and it depends on what your move bias is, whether you do more rollovers, more technical stuff, more ricochets, more aerials. I mean, realistically, flipping a battle song can be a sport, and it is. I'm not denying that at all. But at the end of the day, battle song manipulation is a hobby, and you want to enjoy your hobbies. I would honestly love to have a knife being this to pursue such a hobby, because it makes me enjoy doing it, because it has a good enough balance to flip. Not that it's even bad, it's honestly pretty good. It flips and feels wonderful in my hands. It's like a positive feedback loop to wanting to just pick it up and flip it. That doesn't mean that any other knife is bad. The 51 is light. It's not a great flipper. I mean, it flips well if it's in the right hands, but the balance isn't great. It's light, it's small. But when it's set up right, I enjoy flipping the 51. It's not my favorite, and it's harder to do some moves on it than other bally songs, but I get enjoyment out of it, and that's why I enjoy having a 51. It just flips in a certain way I enjoy in some moods of the day. The BB Barfly Pro V2. I mean, it's not the best flipper. It's got really large handles, which make it easier for some things, but it makes it harder for others. And it's designed very well, and it flips very well. It has great balance, and I love this thing. But it's not always the knife that I'm going to enjoy flipping the most in a certain situation. And it's not always my favorite knife to hold. The Alpha Beast. This is the best balanced knife, best flipping knife in my collection. I love my Alpha Beast. But it's not the most enjoyable knife to flip. I'd honestly rather flip the BB Barfly. It's not better balanced than the Alpha Beast, but I enjoy flipping it sometimes because it just feels better in my hands. The Alpha Beast is a little gunmetal and just rough and strong and just cold. And that's what I want to feel sometimes, and that's what makes flipping it really enjoyable sometimes. This is why having a knife collection is almost crucial for really getting a true appreciation of this hobby. It's just, you want to be able to feel all these things when you do it. But the Max Ace Serpent Striker implements all these things in such a way to where it just wants to be flipped more often than any of the knives individually. It combines the aspects of all of those knives in the way people describe the Replicant, honestly. I wasn't a fan of the Replicant because I didn't have one I didn't have a chance to flip one that was tuned very well or set up well. And I flipped some good ones, but they were really loose, and it just, even then, it just wasn't my favorite knife. This feels like the Replicant people have always described to me. It's a little smaller than a Replicant, but it just flips the way that and it's in my head. And I don't know if this was made to be like a substitute for a Replicant in the way it was designed. I wouldn't be surprised if it was. But, oh my goodness. Like, this knife just makes me want to pick it up and start flipping. Everything about this knife is enjoyable. everything but the fact that it doesn't have bushings, which means that you can't just tighten down the screws and expect them to hold very well. But that's a simple solution. Get some paracord or Loctite and either weight or do it properly and you're good to go. I'm not going to provide a link to this. You can find it on AliExpress and other DHgate style Chinese websites for around $120 to $150 if I remember correctly, I mean. But yeah, this knife is just the stuff. And I appreciate the fan of mine who sent this to me to do a review on it. It took a while because I just could not collect my thoughts, and I've just been super busy finishing school this year. I'm going to be a senior now, woohoo. And this knife just triggers all the right feelings, and honestly, it's a well-built knife too. It's wonderfully constructed. For the price, back to the beginning, this is the kind of thing you dreamed about back 8 years ago, because it just didn't exist. It was the best. I'm at a loss for words. I mean, you just couldn't get something this good. We're incredibly lucky these days that people getting started can get something this good these days. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all I gotta say before I start repeating myself. I mean, honestly, if you have the money, go buy one of these. I'm honestly gonna save up and get one like this, I believe, because I just enjoy it that much. It's almost like the 42 in the way that it wasn't the greatest flipper, but the people who rave about it so much don't rate a knife based on its flippability as much as they do their ability to flip a knife because they enjoy it so much. And that's why people have different mileages with the knife like the 42, because they just enjoy it different levels, or they feel like it's going to flip amazing and solve other problems, but it just doesn't. Because to some people, it's just a really wonderful knife that flips well, and they enjoy it, and that's what makes it so great. Otherwise, that's everything I gotta say. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.